Hey, welcome. So, what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going through one of my sketch pads, and it's a pretty cheap sketch pad. I think it only cost me a couple bucks out here in Thailand. It's really good paper. I like it. It's ultra smooth. I'll show you the sketch pad later. So what I'm doing is just kind of sifting through, trying to figure out if I have any blank pages left. Here I was just doing some Spider-Man gestures, and okay, we have this page. It's a little crummy. Let's see if we have, okay, we have another one here. So what I'm going to attempt to do is draw from imagination. Let's see if I can get this camera, pull back a little bit here. This is just kind of a test. Let's see how it works out. I'm just going to show you my sketch process. Now, generally when I sketch in my sketchbook, I will draw from imagination. Now, if I'm studying certain, maybe a background or a certain perspective shot or whatever, or a character, I might do some character sketches in my sketchbook just to familiarize myself before I jump onto the main page. So anyway, my weapons of choice are going to be right here as follows. Basically, I have a kneaded eraser. I have a smaller fine tip eraser. I have a 2H just wooden lead pencil or a graphite pencil. I have my lead holder, which is a turquoise Prismacolor 2.0 millimeter lead holder, and I think this is, I'm thinking that it's 2H lead in here. This is a regular HB pencil that you would use back in the day when you're in school, yellow pencil. And then this is another lead holder. Now this is it's just a kind of a cheap one I got from Taiwan, and this one has a very dull tip, and I believe this is HB lead in here. So my method, generally, depending on what I'm sketching, is I will start out with, make sure I'm recording. I will start out with a kind of a blunt tip pencil like this, and get my loose gesture lines going. So I have no idea what I'm drawing right now. I will just kind of dive in. So typically, well, let's see. I'll start with a line. Just kind of get my wrist and my arms moving. One thing you want to do, and this is something I tell to my students a lot, is don't just draw from your fingers. You can when you're doing your details, if they're very minute and very, small. But initially when you're doing a sketch, you want to move your whole arm. Now I draw from my shoulder and I keep everything loose. And I generally tell my students to keep your pencil moving during the initial sculpting stage. And then once you get past that and you're tightening things up, you can start slowing down the pencil movement, and you can really start honing in and focusing on your lines. So what I'm doing here is, let's see, I'm just going to draw a head shape, which would be an oval. Then under here, I'll draw just a kind of a barrel shape, like a representation of the upper chest and torso. And then here, I'll do kind of my representation of where the pelvis would fall. I have no idea what's going on here yet. This is my first sketch of the day, so generally whatever comes out, and then I just go from there. If you're drawing and you have kind of a preset idea in mind, that's pretty cool too, because then you can get your reference materials and stuff like that together. Now let me just see. Yeah, it's kind of showing up on cam. And now this is very, very light. And the reason for that is I'm keeping it as loose as possible. One, because I'm not sure exactly what it's going to be or who it's going to be. Two is I want to keep my paper pretty clean. Even though this is just a sketchbook sketch, I still like to practice, keeping my sketches fairly clean and I want something that's legible, something that you can see. So what I'm going to do here is just draw some arms. Now, since I kind of cut this head here, like I took this chest line and then I dropped the head, I kind of feel like I'm looking up at the character. Kind of like this. And then, so I would imagine that the horizon line would be somewhere up here. And then I'm looking up, and then the ground would be somewhere down here. So as we're looking up, things may appear smaller as they get further away from the camera, which the camera would be, if we're looking up, the camera would be down here, and we're looking up towards this character. Now, who is this character? I have no idea. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I'm putting a leg forward. And keep in mind, another good reason why I tend to draw very lightly in this stage is because the probability of me erasing this is very, very high. And starting over, or, it's much more difficult to get into the flow or the zone when you're talking and drawing too. Typically when I'm drawing, I play music in the background. I get into the beats, into the rhythm of it, and I kind of just let go of everything. I'm not talking. I'm not distracted by anything. So it's a little bit different. And maybe what I'll end up doing later is just recording myself drawing, and then I'll do kind of a voiceover afterwards, and I'll speed up the video because these things take a while. Let's see. Okay, so now that I have kind of a character here, what I can choose to do is just press down a little bit harder just to kind of make these lines a little bit more formidable and recognizable. And if I don't want to use this pencil for that, I don't have to. I can pull out the, with this type of paper, I'm using a very small, thin paper. I would probably pull out the number 2 pencil, which is a HB again. But I can get tighter lines with that. What I mean is actually darker, looser lines, and then erase those to get the tighter lines afterwards. Okay. So I'll show you an example of that right now. So I'll jump over, I'll grab this number 2 pencil. And we're not going in for the kill. And what I mean by that is we're not going in for any type of details yet. We're still kind of discovering who we're drawing, what their body language is. Are they human? Are they monster? Are they alien? We don't know any of those details yet. I'm leaning towards more like a human or superhuman. And one thing that I'm always keeping in mind is how can I keep this character balanced? So what I mean by that is if the head is here, you want to make sure that most of the weight is directly under the head if the character's standing straight up. And since we're looking up at this character, that means he's going to appear shorter at the top and longer at the bottom. Meaning that he's going to appear like as he's going away, he's going to appear smaller. Now, what do I want to do with his legs? I could take this leg here and just kind of draw a cylinder shape like that. Then underneath here, another cylinder shape coming down. And then put where the foot would be. And then here, you could just imagine that this leg is going behind this leg, so you wouldn't see too much of it. And I might make some more adjustments on that later. Okay. So you can tell I haven't added too much musculature onto this yet. Just kind of getting into the groove. And then what I will do from here is, let's see, I'm going to make him looking down at us. So when I'm drawing a face, I'll do some simple measurements. I'll put his eyeball here, keeping it very elementary. A nose here, a mouth down here. And then from this mouth, I would probably start penciling where I want the jawline to go. Draw the chin here. And so I keep it very rudimentary initially, right? And you always have room to come back and do your details. You can add more muscle to them. You always have, the advantage of working with a pencil is you can always change every dynamic about your sketch. And you have an eraser. And if you're drawing extra light like I am, it makes life a little bit easier. So it's kind of looking at us. I'm not sure what this pose is yet. It's kind of like maybe like getting ready to fight, but not sure yet. So what I would probably do at this point is come in with a kneaded eraser and just clean it up a little bit. One thing about kneaded erasers is you have to replace them. Like this one needs to be replaced because it's getting a lot of graphite in it. So sometimes when I erase, it'll get kind of spotty onto the page. And it's kind of, with my sketchbook, I don't really mind too much. But if you're doing like pro work or if you're doing commissions or something like that, then it kind of gets annoying. From here, I'll take my, I believe it's 2H or H lead holder, and I'll start going in for some details. Still don't know who I'm drawing. So what I'm going to do is just kind of revisit some of these initial lines. Just to get the shapes in. Now I know his eyes fall around here and here. So what I can do is I can start working on some of the features of the face. Now, since this head is relatively small, I don't have to add too much in terms of details. So then what I would do is I usually keep this smaller eraser on hand too to kind of clean up as I go. And so what I'll do now is work on the nose. So I know I have a straight line here, and I'm just eyeballing and guesstimating where things fall, because here's the thing. There are a lot of rules that you learn when you're drawing. But not everyone fits those rules. Everyone has different face shapes and sizes. So I kind of make mine up as I go along, and I try to make it look as proportional as possible. So then I'm just going to give them kind of a grimacing look here. Keep in mind at all times, this is just a sketch on the sketch pad. So don't overthink it. And as I'm telling you that, I'm kind of telling myself that too. And since I have the relative shape of his face, I know that his ears are going to go somewhere right around here, because he's looking down at us. So typically when a character moves his head downward, the ears will appear to raise up. And when the character looks upward, the ears will drop down. These are little things that you pay attention to. And let's see. Now, since I have kind of a basic shell sketched in for the body, now this is what you would call an underdrawing. What I would do from here is just attach a neck. Now I'm not going to be too deliberate on where I put the muscles yet. I'll kind of just figure it out as I go along. Again, I'm just making this character up. Could be anyone. This is just practice. And this is just a warm up for me to get my day started before I start diving into my real work. But you know what? Don't underestimate practice. Don't underestimate, repetition and learning. You're never too good for it. And you'll never know everything there is to know. The more you learn, the more you realize you have more to learn. And one of the things that's really helped me, believe it or not, is teaching. I just started teaching back in 2020. And ever since I started doing that, I've noticed that I'm extra attentive and aware of my own art now and how I'm approaching everything. Because if you want to help others and help them to understand your procedures and all that, you have to really have a full understanding yourself. So you can't really go on autopilot all the time, which I still do. But yeah, I try to be present and aware of what I'm doing. So here we go. So we have a shoulder here. So what we're going to try and do is we're basing our anatomy from memory. So there's always room for error. And that's okay. We don't mind if we make mistakes. Now I'm just kind of drawing his tighty-whities here that can be erased later. But they give me kind of a landmark as to where things go. Then you can start shaping in some musculature. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just know that there's a big part of the leg, which is the upper leg, the quad area, that will overlap over to the knee. And then from the knee, you're coming down to your shin. And then from your shin, you have your ankle. And you can start kind of guesstimating where all these muscles will fall. And if you look at it, your art, and you realize like you got something wrong, just erase it and fix it. It's not a big deal. The key here is getting it done, putting something on paper. Don't overthink. Learn from your mistakes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Never become a perfectionist, I would say, with anything and everything, but especially when you're doing art. So since his arm is up here, we're going to imagine some shapes. Now typically I don't usually do this, but since you're watching, I'm going to imagine that he's got a cylinder here coming down. Now that cylinder connects to the big ball of a shoulder, which is the socket. And keep in mind that this shoulder can move up and down, back and forth, and it can rotate. All right. So you're thinking of that. You can think of all your muscles and how they contract. Like this is your bicep. Behind is the tricep, right, which is 3 muscles. The bicep is 2 muscles. And then you're taking your forearms here. And then as you're doing this, you're kind of measuring straight across here, doing the same. Just penciling in where you think they're going to fall. And then remember, since we're looking up, we're going to be overlapping a lot. So what I mean by overlapping is this hand is just a shape, but it's overlapping this cylinder. That's the forearm. This forearm is overlapping this cylinder, which is the bicep and upper arm. And then that bicep is overlapping the shoulder and connecting to that shoulder. Same on both sides. Same when you're doing the legs. So, and everything actually. So everything is overlapping when you're looking up. Now I could do like, let's see. As I'm drawing, I'm thinking, this doesn't have to be a particular character. This could be someone I'm making up as I go, which kind of is the case. But then you're thinking, okay, what can I give them as like, should I give them a weapon? So what I'm going to do is just pencil in where I think the muscles are going to fall. I'm going to give him kind of a armband here. Then I'm imagining, now when I draw the hand, imagine, since we're looking at this angle, imagine that your hand is going to be shaped kind of like this. Almost like a box connects to the wrist here. And then you have your 1, 2, 3, 4 fingers, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then these all connect to this wrist. And then you have to give him his thumb. So that's what's going on in my head is, what angle do I want this hand to be? Do I want him to be making a fist? Do I want him to be holding a weapon? These are just questions you're constantly going to ask yourself when you're drawing. Unless you have a script and direct orders from an editor or writer, and you're just drawing for fun, you're just kind of making it up as you go along. And it's actually a lot of fun. I tend to learn the most when I do things this way. Okay, so I'm going to just draw a dot in the middle representing his eyes. And then since I mentioned this earlier, we don't have to put too much detail because his head is really small. So we don't want to ruin it. When you put too much detail on, it is kind of cool on certain characters and features, but honestly, sometimes less is more. So now I'm just kind of imagining where some of these tense points are going to fall. Like, there's I think 3 different muscles on your shoulder. Now I'm not a doctor, so I don't know the anatomy chart in terms of Latin, terminology, but just by observation and understanding and going to the gym quite often myself, you start learning about your different muscles. You don't have to know all the names of them, but as long as you're learning about them and you understand their purpose, how they work, well, I would say that kind of helps. Not just kind of, it actually helps a lot, because while you're thinking and while you're drawing, you can start just imagining yourself. Like, when the arm is stretched out, a couple things to remember. When the arm is stretched out like this, it's elongated. So it's extended, right? So the bicep seems a little bit longer, the tricep seems a little bit shorter, and goes up a little higher in the back. Now, if you were to lift this arm up, it would shorten and contract this muscle, And this muscle here, the tricep, would actually stretch out and extend. I know you probably know this already, but for those that might not, there you go. Okay. Now, we'll just jump over here to his other arm. Actually, I'll start with the hand. Doing the same thing almost, where I'm 1, 2, 3. I'm going to have the wrist kind of turning upward like this. Now this one you're going to see less of the tricep because it's behind this muscle. Now this is your representation of the bicep. So then I'm going to kind of match this arm where I have the little wristband or whatever you want to call it. Maybe even put on some gloves. A lot of times they have those little gloves with the little square hole here. Now let's add some elements to this character. So at this point, I'm doing kind of both. I'm practicing, my art skills, but I'm also doing some character design, right? Not to say that I'll ever use this character in the future, but whatever, it's fun. So now I have to decide, all right, does he have a weapon? Like, what's going on here? And also, does he have hair? Is he bald? Does he have kind of is he wearing kind of a mask or a helmet? We don't know yet. Like, we haven't gone that far. So that's where we kind of just start experimenting a little bit more. Now, I could also give him like let's say a belt. So when you're drawing here, you're thinking of, imagine that this is the torso, right? So you're thinking that this torso is round, right? So you're looking underneath. So you want that belt to kind of match that. So you're always thinking in these shapes. You're not just thinking at what you see that's close to us. You want to think of everything. You want to think of, if this character were in real life, three-dimensional, how would things function? How would things work? And now we're not going to get into shades or anything like that yet. We can pick our light source and all that stuff later. But for now, what I'll do is I'll take this leg and I will imagine that there's something wrapped around here. You know how a lot of these characters, especially in the 90s, they would have these straps wrapped around their legs. Or if you're a Rob Liefeld fan, which I am, he's a buddy of mine, I would say, there's no harm adding pouches to your character. These are like utility belts, right? There you go. So we're just placing things here where they might fall. We're not worried about where the exact muscle is going to fall yet. Now, at this point, what I want to do is decide, okay, what's next? I want to give him, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give him a headband. Headband would be the same. You're imagining that his head is round. It's a sphere, right? So if his head is a sphere, and you put a headband on it, it's not going to be straight across. It's going to follow the curvature of his head. So you're imagining, and you decide how low you want to put it. We'll put it right around here. Before I commit, just get these lines right. And this is just a sketch, so it doesn't matter. I feel like I want to raise his ears a little bit higher because I feel like this headband should fall right where the ears go. So I'm going to raise his ears up a little higher. And I'm going to kind of crease this a little bit to show that it's tied around. I'm going to give him a little, let's do a little yin-yang. Basically an S inside of a circle. And then we can color one side in. And then what? Do I give him long hair? What do you think? Send your thoughts to me right now. I'll try and read them. I'm going to give him, let's see. What would make him, now that I'm thinking about it, I think that this back arm and this back leg, I'm going to kind of shade them in just with some lines like this. I'm not going to go full force shading. I'm just going to draw some straight vertical lines to represent shadow. Same here. And that kind of gives us a little depth, right? And then same here, underneath his chest. Now you can do sideways. I kind of like it to go the same direction as the muscle. Same here, underneath his sternum. And then maybe even over here underneath this arm. Just making them pop out a little bit more. So there we have a character. Now here we can put like a circle, do kind of like a Chinese star around that circle. Right, and then you can add like a knife here. And you're just choosing the most basic shapes and elements that you can. And then you can come back and redraw these a little bit better. Here I will do kind of a knee pad. I'll make it kind of a diamond shape. Make sure it's wrapping around the leg. Give them kind of a circle here in the middle. And then another circle around it. I'm just making this up. There's no specific way to do this. You can use reference. I'm just doing it kind of cartoony right now. If you really want to make your art pop out, I do recommend using reference. So I'm just going to add some little utilities over here. Now, there we go. So another cool thing you can do is, as you can see, we're just adding certain elements and features, but if you want to play with the artistic side of all this, you could draw a band, like a wristband here, or an armband. You want to go kind of the same direction as the arm. Right? And then you can come in here and erase this. Keep everything else a shadow. but just kind of erase that, and it kind of makes it pop out. And it's just kind of a gimmicky aesthetic, right? Same here. Since this one's kind of waving over here, I'm gonna imagine that this is a long, extra exaggerated headband here. And I'm just kind of tapering it down. Making it up as I go along, right? You can even add some shade underneath it to make it kind of stand out. Then we would say, you know, to ourselves, what kind of hairstyle does he have? We don't know yet. Still figuring that out. While I'm figuring that out, let's give him kind of a dragon tattoo. Let's do like a... Just going to do a basic shape like this. Making it up. I'm going to encompass it in kind of a circle. Okay. Then, let's see. Since everything's kind of blowing in the wind this way, I think what I'm going to do is give him hair. Now this hair, I'm going to have it go over here with the wind. So I'm going to exaggerate this hair. And I'm going to come back and erase it. What I'm doing right now is kind of getting a feel for it. And then I'll come back and draw even more. A little bit more detailed. Draw a couple overlaps over the headband. And then we'll take this kneaded eraser here. Just kind of lightly erase that. Just leaving kind of a ghost of the hair behind. And then what we'll do is we'll come in and we'll just kind of fine tune it a little bit. Again, this is not the final part of the sketch. I still consider this part of the process. And then what I'll end up doing is I'll come in with a darker pencil and add a little bit more detail. Okay. So we have that. Now, let's imagine that he's got a sword in his hand. I'm just going a little crazy with this one. You know why? It's fun. There's no like harm, no foul, just kind of just kind of playing, just having fun, right? I mean, that's the whole purpose. And then what I'll do here is, let's see. I'm going to have this pencil or this sword here, so I'm going to erase this. I'm going to follow through that line. Now I'm freehanding, I'm not using any kind of ruler or anything, so don't laugh if it's not perfectly straight. I'm going to go up a little taller, a little longer. Then I'm going to do a little line down the middle here, kind of representing the center of the sword. I'm going to wrap it up and kind of make it look a little cool and funky. And then we'll leave some room here for the the handle, because I'll probably come in and when I darken that up, I'll add a little bit more feature to that. Okay, so then let's add another element here. Let's see, we got a Chinese star. We have a knife, like a Rambo knife. We have a couple wristbands here. We have his gloves. He's holding the sword here. Do I want him holding something here? Let's see. Or is that just too much? Maybe I can just leave it be. I could cross the swords if I wanted to. But I'm not going to go too ham on this one. And then, since we're here, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I'm just going to pull out a kind of a darker pencil. I typically don't draw with these types of pencils, but this is I think a 0.5 mechanical pencil. Yep, 0.5. And the brand name, I don't know, Uni. So Kuratoga, I don't know. Sounds Japanese. But anyway, sounds like sushi. I'm going to go ahead and just overlay this a little bit. Just find some key spots that I want to add some darkness to. You don't have to go too crazy with this. Again, this is just practice, right? And there we go. So I darkened in the eyes. Now you're leaving a lot to imagination. I'll put a little bit of bone structure here. I like a clean, sharp jaw on these type of characters. Whereas with like a Wolverine type, I would draw, a lot of scruff. Now I will add some shadows here. So I will imagine that the light source is coming from up here. So I'll add a little bit of shadow. And I'll just kind of pick out where I think the shadow might fall. It doesn't have to be perfect. I don't ever strive for perfection, ever. I found out that when I do kind of strive to be perfect, it always comes out wonky. But if I go for a wonky, it comes out acceptable. And what I mean by that is you just gotta let go of the outcome. Just kind of enjoy the process. I know it sounds very cliche, but there's a reason for cliches. So then what I'll do is I'll darken up this yin yang. I actually have a yin yang tattoo. Okay, so now let's go back here. I'll redefine this hair a little bit. I'll add a couple little lines here to kind of accentuate this. Just kind of following along what I've already done. Now it's up to you if you want to make him a little bit more detailed, like you can darken in the eyes. You can give him more like of a furrowed brow. The choice is yours. And if you make mistakes, who cares? Just either correct it or leave it and learn. So now I'm just going to just touch onto the anatomy a little bit. And I will shade some shadow underneath the chin here. And again, like this whole time that I'm drawing, I'm constantly reminding myself, don't go too deep into this. Just learn what I can from it. Have fun. I call these, exercises kind of sharpening the saw. You always want to keep your skill set sharp, right? You want to keep it. You can draw on a little shape here for the nipple if you want to. But you always want to keep your skills as sharp as possible, because you never know when the day is gonna, the day's gonna come that you're called upon to do some work. I get random calls all the time, and there's been times where I was kind of out of practice and I've declined because my mind just wasn't in it. And you don't want that to happen too much. So I'm just kind of capturing the elements that I find most relevant to this. Just kind of capturing the important lines, I should say. What determines if they're important? You do. You're the artist. Everything you put on the page is something that you want to be intentional about. And if there are happy accidents, and sometimes you draw things that are unintentional, and they work out, but don't rely on that. Just for every line, you must have a reason. Unless you're absolutely going for that sketchy look, which, to be honest with you, I like the sketchy look of art. I like process sketches the most. That's why I post mostly process sketches on my Instagram. They get the most likes. I rarely even post finished art anymore. So if I'm doing commissions for clients or any kind of work, professional or not, I typically just show the process, just partial aspects of that particular art. And man, people like it. I like it. It's the same thing. I understand. It's the same thing that really got me into wanting to draw, was just kind of watching people who are my mentors and influences, watching them draw and just making it look so easy as they did, made me feel like, I could do it too. And I want you to feel like that. I want you, if you're struggling with art, but you have that little voice inside you that tells you that you want to draw, or you feel like you're getting closer, don't stop. Just keep learning, get a mentor. I do mentorships, I do coaching and stuff like that. I have videos here on YouTube and elsewhere. I have courses. I try to offer people today what I didn't have when I was first starting out, and then I mean that in the term of resources. Now I'm going to darken in this shadow again. Just going to keep it vertical like this, these little vertical lines. I'm not going for too much detail on this sketch. This one I'll shade in a little bit more solid. This is his wristband. And then when we get to his knuckles here, we're remembering that he's wearing kind of a short glove. And then we're going to draw this sword handle. Yeah, so I was saying, when I was first starting out, man, there were not many resources. I was either learning from comic books or Wizard magazine, or just buying, books from the bookstore that most of them weren't very helpful, to be honest. I mean, they gave me some insights, but you have a few that are really great, like George Bridgman stuff. But and of course, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. That was a game changer for me, and gave me a lot of insight and hope. But generally speaking, there's just really not too many resources for artists. I mean, legit resources where you're really going to learn. I keep seeing these ads on my Instagram and Facebook and stuff. It's for a company, I forget the name. I don't even know if it's a company. It's just someone who sells art courses. I think it's something like training for comics or something like that. And then I reviewed them. I read the reviews, and everyone's saying, stay away. And they use like AI art to promote their. It's really gimmicky. I can tell that what they're trying to do is just suck in as many customers as they can, and it has nothing to do with really teaching or providing quality. You don't see a real person talking about it. You just see like really generic ads and sales pages and copywriting and stuff like that. But you don't see anything that's, to me, I mean, they make it really look easy. I think it's like $10, and then you can have all this access. But then I read in the reviews that that's not the case. That you pay $10 and you get charged like $80, and then yada yada. It just seems like bad practice, and that kind of sucks that exists. I'm not surprised that it exists, but it kind of sucks because, man, I can remember when I was first starting out and how if I can get my hands on anything that I thought was going to help, I would get it. Like I would just dive right in, and I would, any book I saw that said, how to draw comics or whatever, I would buy. And I just felt like even if I didn't get much from them, I was investing in something that I really loved. And back then, though, it was most of the stuff that you got was at least legit. It wasn't scammy or anything. Sorry, I didn't mean to kind of segue off to that, but it's just something I noticed the other day. Is I'm getting all these. I'm here in Thailand. I'm living in Bangkok, Thailand, and surprisingly, I'm getting all these ads for these comic book. I guess it's because I promote a lot of my courses, so I guess the algorithms telling the ads people that I'm interested in it too, and whatever. It's fine. Now, I'm going to stop here on this one. I feel like I could go down. I don't like this foot, honestly. I would erase this. But if I were to continue this, I would probably shorten this leg a little bit. I had it way too long. At least now it looks way long. Maybe initially it was going to work, but in the end, you want to go with what works with what you have. But yeah, so I would probably just start here and then decide if I want this. If I had the ground somewhere around here, I would probably put a shoe on him, or boot, and then put this leg going back. And then keeping that shadow going back there. When I draw boots, I do like, maybe it was Jeff Campbell, I'm sure you guys are familiar. When he did a comic, Gen 13 back in the day, he had a character named Grunge, and Grunge always had these boots on. They're like combat boots. And so one of the things I really liked about Jeff's work is that he would do all the laces, and he would just like, go all out on the details. So that kind of instilled a lot of habits into me as well, in terms of, adding details where I think that they kind of pop a little bit. And yeah, those things stick with you. When you learn certain things from your favorite artists or inspirations, they kind of tend to stay with you in your psyche and your subconscious mind. Okay, there we go. How does this look on camera? If I zoom in a little bit more. Yeah, it's okay. It looks really dark on here. It's kind of weird. Maybe it's the camera setting. So there's that. Should I draw another one? It's 56 minutes. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and do another sketch. Why not? It's going to take forever to load on YouTube. But heck, I don't draw for YouTube that much anymore. I don't make videos because I'm so busy making my own courses these days. So I guess I kind of owe you guys. I'm a little bit in debt here. See what else I can draw for you. Let's do a face. A lot of times students and fans, whatever the case may be, they always ask me how to draw a face. So I'm going to show you a typical way of how I would draw a face. I might draw two. I might draw one facing forward and one doing a 3/4 turn. So facing forward, try not to make it too big because I want to have room on the same page. I feel like I'm getting a little bit warmed up even though I'm talking. So what I'll do is I'll draw kind of a oval shape like this. If it's a male figure, I'll make it a little bit boxier. If it's a female, I'll make it more elongated and kind of pointy at the bottom. But here's the thing, you can always change the shape of the head as you're going along. So once I get this general shape like this, I will find, if he's looking straight at me, not tilting his head down like this character, but if he's looking straight at me, I'll just draw a straight line like this, right, across. And then I will kind of imagine that his nose, the center of his nose is going to be there. So you can draw a couple lines, however thick you want the nose to be. Come down here. How big do you want the nose? Because everyone has different shapes and lengths and sizes for noses. And then what I would do here is I would imagine that one eye would be here, one eye would be here. Try and keep, I guess there's a rule that I read about a long time ago, which is like keep one eyeball in between to kind of separate the distance between the two. Now, it varies because I've had success putting eyes closer together and eyes further apart. So you just got to find that little happy spot for you. And study people, study magazines, study photos and actors and yourself in a mirror. So now this is still kind of, should I zoom in on this a little bit more? Sorry. Okay, pop that right there. So it's very light, and I think I'm just going to make a generic character, right? And what I mean by that is just a random, what they call it, NPC, non-player character. But you can still make them look cool. So you take everything that you've learned. You study faces. You study the heck out of faces, right? Everybody you look at, you just study them. People are going to think you're weird. Like, why are you staring at me, bro? But, this is what you do as an artist. You're constantly watching people. You're looking at shapes and features and angles and, what stands out the most. You're looking for stuff like that. So now that I have this kind of like guideline here, right? I can come in here with my, and you don't have to do like I'm doing. You can just start, jump right in with your pencil. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, I'm just going to jump in here with a pencil. I'm going to kind of just reiterate the lines I've already drawn. And I'm going to make his chin here. Eye lines here, right? Center lines here. So when I do the eye line, sometimes I do 2 and put the eyes in between. Imagining like if this were a skull, where would everything fall? And then his ears, over here. Now ears are another thing. Some people have big ears, some have small ears, some ears stand out, some are closer to the head. You go with whatever you feel works for you. Find some cool ears. You might be an artist that's just known for the way you draw ears. So now I'm just kind of placing where I think the nostrils would fall, just based on my underdrawing here. Now, I don't know the mood of this character yet, but I know that his mouth is going to be around here. Now, a couple of guidelines for you when you're drawing a face is, how's that? Is that a little bit better? Yeah. So a couple of guidelines when you're drawing a face is from the center of the eye, you can draw a straight line down, right, of each eye. And that kind of gives you a triangular point to the center of the nose where everything falls. So if you want to get into like the geometry of a face, you can. And I used to do this and play around with this all the time. It's not necessary. Just know the basics. And then you can come back and kind of break it down and kind of deconstruct later. But, these are just little things that I've noticed. So then you can take you can take a stab at how do you want to draw the eye. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a circle and another circle. And then I'm going to, now keep in mind, I'm probably going to erase all this. I'm going to draw kind of halfway through this circle. Kind of like that. And then for the nose, I'm going to go ahead and just draw a basic shape for our nose. And what I mean by basic is it's not a strong Roman nose or anything like that. It's just a general nose that you might see anywhere. Like I said, this is kind of a non-player character, just kind of someone I'm making up. So his lip and mouth, well, you could change the whole mood of a character just by tilting one side of his mouth up. Totally just change the mood, right? You can do it the other side too, right? You can play around these little lines. You can do his eyebrows upward like that, or you can curve them down like this. It's really fun to play around with stuff like this. It's like you're going to discover all these combinations that can help you out. Now, you don't have to draw every line. So what I do with this underdrawing is I kind of give myself a guidepost, right? Where I know where things will fall because I'm going to come back and erase most of this anyway, right? So I'll come in and just kind of shape in some kind of human head the best that I can. Not worried about the details or the final product yet. Maybe I'll put in some kind of lazy, chilled eyes here, just kind of like, right. And we haven't determined, you know, the age of this character or anything like that. Hairstyle. These are just things that come with the territory. You just kind of make them up as you go along. In terms of style, your style is going to shine through your art. Your style's, you know, as much as you want to just design your own style, your style just kind of designs you. Like it kind of like shows through you. So don't worry too much about style. Your style is going to be, it's going to happen. I get this question a lot. That's why I bring it up. But your style is going to shine through. It's just like your handwriting. Like you didn't choose your handwriting style. You can change your handwriting style if you really emphasize and practice every single day. But just like art, I mean, just go with what comes out naturally. And yeah. Okay. So now we have this. Now, a few things you can do. You can determine, you know, where do you want the hair to be. So you can find a hairline. So you can just go in, out. This is what I typically do. In, out. If he's an older character, I'll go back a little further, give him a little receding hairline. Come back inward, kind of circle in like that. Or you can circle around. I mean, there's no specific right way for a hairline. Everyone has a different one. So when I see people teaching, you know, exact methods on stuff like this, I think it's a little silly because you have to leave the door open for creativity and just different attributes on different people. So then what I'll do is I'll give him a hair part over here. I'll choose his left, our right. And then I will, what that means is since I've drawn a line over here kind of leaning more to this side, that means most of this hair from here is going to go this way, right? Now you can draw a big clump of hair. Don't worry about getting it perfect. Just get the shapes in here. You hear me say that a lot, don't you? Like I like to repeat myself because people don't tend to listen the first time. So I'll say it like 300 more times. Okay, so we have these hairline, this hair kind of woven in here, like kind of, you know, just kind of speculative hairstyle, which we can always change later. So now it's up to us. Like, what do we want to do with this? Do we want to go a little crazy on it? Do we want to, you know, do we want to minimize it and just kind of make it look more cartoony? It's up to us. If you want to make it more realistic, it just depends on your mood. What I'll do is I'll start with the eyeball here. And then I'll do the iris of the eye. Now, you don't have to draw everything like you would a real eye, because you got to remember too, is you're trying to have fun, number one, and number two is this is a comic book style medium, right? So you're not stuck. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm basically trying to tell you that you can break the rules if you want. You're not tied down to any type of rules that you would learn if you were drawing like fine arts. So you can experiment, you can exaggerate. So now what I'm going to do is just kind of, like I did with this one here, I'm just going to find some of the areas that I think would pop out and stand out the most. I'm going to give them kind of a upper eyelash or eyelid here. Now In terms of an eyebrow, that's up to us. Do we want to give them thick eyebrows or thin eyebrows? We'll figure that out in a little bit. Then you have this little indentation underneath the nose that goes to your lip. Now with the lip, you don't have to draw solid lines. You can just kind of jump around. This is what I tend to do. And then you can come in and start figuring out where cheekbones are. If you're adding shade and shadow to this character, you can kind of start thinking about that at this stage where it's going to fall. I made him kind of a box shape jawline here, and I'll give him a little bit of a rounder chin, and totally making this character up as I go along. And there are really no limits for how many combinations you can come up with. It's really up to you. As long as you're happy, I'm happy. Then for the hair, we can just start. Actually, let's go ahead and do a little bit of detail here. I'm going to give him kind of a dimple here. And you know, sometimes people have this like muscle here in the jaw. Now I'm thinking shadows here. I'm thinking that underneath his nose I'm going to add shadow, probably under here too. And then you can get a little bolder here with the hair. You can get a little bit more confident with your lines. Just kind of keep everything moving in the same direction. And there's, like I say with most things, there's no exact way to draw hair. Some people do it better than others. Some, you know, everyone has their own hairstyle too. I mean, heck, for all I know, this is this character's preferred hairstyle. So then I'm just going to add some hair over here. Now I'm not, you know, as you know, this is, again, another reminder, this is just a sketchbook, you know, practice sketch. And I just decided to, you know, make a video about it. But by no means is this something where you should be thinking about having anything look super clean, or, you know, just, I'm doing this for pure fun and for pure practice. Even if I end up hating this, even if no one likes my video, even if you don't subscribe, which, you know, I know you would if you watch this, but, you know, hypothetically, let's say you didn't subscribe to my channel, I wouldn't be butthurt. I'd be more hurt for you than I am for myself, because of all this amazing content you're getting. And yeah, I'm just tooting my own horn. You're right. Okay, so there we go. There's a basic front-facing headshot here of a non-player character, comic book style. Now, next step in this, I would just erase and kind of redraw and redefine. You could get more details into the eyebrows, and you could shade in like under here. It's really up to you. You can give him clothes, give him a little collar. Tie. Up to you. You can change his jaw too. You can bring it inward. Make him have a round face. There's it really, when I say that the combinations are limitless, I'm not joking. Okay, so let's do a 3/4 shot. Is that okay? I'm going to do it right here in this area. Hopefully you guys are still with me. I'm starting to feel lonely. Okay, here we go. Headshot, 3/4 view. Let's go and we'll draw a circle. And I'm drawing this circle so I can look up at my camera and make sure, yep, it's in there. Okay, so I'll make them looking towards everyone else. So what we're doing is we're kind of, remember earlier when I was doing the sphere over here? We're doing the same thing here. We're finding the center point, and then we're finding the eye line, or the center of the head. And then from here, from this center point, or center line I should say, you can extend this down, right? And then you could just draw a straight line like this, kind of perpendicular with this sphere. Now you can change your shapes as much as you want. You can make up a shape and then draw a face in the shape. It's really up to you. I'm showing you some of the principles right now in terms of creativity, and how you structure it and how you choose to use this video is up to you. Just use it carefully. And if anyone ever says they don't like it, don't tell them you learned from me. I'm just kidding. Okay, so let's draw in an eye here and an eye there. Okay. Oh, how did I figure out that the eye was there and the eye is here? Let me tell you that, because I'm kind of just so used to doing this. So if I have the center line here and then this line going here, I know that I have a nose here, right? Kind of like what we did here. So I have a nose here, and I'm drawing this straight down. And we know that the distance, it's going to change because there's not going to be that much room, because it's when you tilt ahead and you're doing a 3/4 view, you're doing what's called foreshortening, right? So what's further away from us is going to appear a little smaller, or you're not going to see as much of it. So what I did was on this eye line, I drew kind of a circle, which I knew just by kind of being experienced, I guess, that if we had a skull and we had the nose here, I knew that that circle within the circle would fall around this vicinity. Now, if I end up changing it and moving it closer, I can. So don't be alarmed if you don't know exactly where to put the eye, because this is where experimentation comes in. This is where, taking risks comes in. Play around. And then on this eye, this is the important one, the one that's further away, you're not going to see the whole thing because his face has planes. It's not flat. You're not looking at like a box where you have an eyeball here and an eyeball here and a nose here. You have tangents and not tangents, but topography. You have planes. You have objects that are blocking certain parts. So you want to think in 3 dimensions, right? So you have this head here. Now we've just made it 3-dimensional. right? We're giving it kind of a cube shape. This, right? And then we're translating all this into, what's the best way to put it? You're taking all the knowledge you have of shapes, three-dimensional shapes and everything, and you're infusing your art onto it. So you're kind of molding and infusing everything all together. So whereas when I draw this, it's going to look different than the next artist who draws this, right? Everyone's going to have their own unique style and method of doing this. So what I like to do is I like to remind myself that, you're not going to see this eye as much. Your bridge of your nose, depending on how long the nose is going to be, it's going to fall somewhere around here, and then it's going to come back in towards this eye and then triangulate up here. So you're drawing kind of a shape. Now, of course, you can come back in and shape the nostrils and all that stuff, right? But I'm just giving you the basics, and then you take this wisdom that I am imparting onto you, and you take it and you use it wisely. So then, underneath, I'm going to go ahead and, okay, here's something you should be mindful of, is the nose comes out here, right? But we know it's coming off. So, let's say that we're looking from the side. We have the eye here. We know the nose is coming off towards the camera, right? So we also know that it comes back in, right? So we know that the mouth won't start here. I won't draw the mouth here. What we want to do is we want to think of planes. And what I mean by planes is just different levels. What's a good way? Can you guys help me explain what planes are in the comments? Planes are basically when objects tend to protrude or incave, and you're just following the planes of an object. So in this case, just watch what I'm doing and try and pick up on it, and then if I can come up with better terminology, I'll come back and write it in the comments or the description, or talk about it in my next video. Okay, so what we're doing is we're drew the nose in here, brought it back to the face, but now we're imagining that the mouth is going to be somewhere, right? So instead of following this line, which was going down here, now we're insetting that line. So we're changing this part of the line from the nose over to right about here. Now, watch this. Now I'm just going to go ahead and just draw a general line here, which can always change. But remember what I said earlier about drawing straight down from the middle of the eye? That rule doesn't change. So just draw straight down from the middle of the eye, and that's where your mouth will kind of, the sides of your mouth will stop. Also remember that your mouth is going to follow the shape of your head, right? So if you have a round shape, your mouth is going to follow that, right? So if you have teeth are going to wrap around, right? So inside his mouth that's covered by his lips and his face, we know that behind that there should be teeth, hopefully, right? Not always, but most of the time. And then from underneath there, we're going to draw a chin. And now I'm basing this chin based on my initial kind of shape of the head. So I had that weird shape where it was kind of bigger on top and kind of got kind of weird and eccentric down below here. Then I'm going to pull this back. So we have the chin, right? The chin's going to fall kind of in between the mouth, right? So the chin, so same thing here. Chin into the mouth, and then it's going to come back, and it's going to follow your jawline. Now, not everyone has a jawline. So you could just leave it and kind of build it into the neck, but like in comic books and stuff like that, you're typically drawing angular features and stuff. It's more aesthetic and pleasing to the eye, even if it's a villain. So in this case, I'm just giving him kind of a jawline that falls back here and cuts up a little bit, right? Like angle up. And then we know that his ear would be right around here, because if you look at your own ear, right when your chin goes up, your ear starts. So I'm just going to give him kind of an ear shape. And then I'm going to bring this brow in, or this furrowed like upper brow in, and then I'm going to curve it like that. So I'm just giving him a little bit more eccentric shape. One thing you could do too, and this kind of helped me, is kind of study caricatures. Now, I don't draw caricatures. I had a job doing it, but I quit on my first day at SeaWorld. I didn't like it, but I was hired to do it based on my art back then when I was just a kid. But I did learn how to draw caricatures. And basically with caricatures, you're exaggerating certain features of the face and emphasizing the features that kind of mark who that person is that you're drawing. And everyone has their features, so your job is to identify them and kind of mark them down. Anyway, I'm rambling. I digress. Let's go back and focus on what's important, which is this 3/4 headshot. Okay, so I made this. This is another random character. We don't know who he is or what he is or anything like that, what he's thinking. But I have the general concept down, right? Now, let's go ahead and take a darker pencil. You know what? I'll do this number 2. I'll get a little fancy with this one. I'll show you how I do fancy stuff. All right, I'm going to get my fancy pencil out, and I'm feeling like I'm in a good mood. You guys are great. You're quiet. All right. So now what I'm going to do is just draw on an eyeball here. I'm making up the shapes. Don't worry, there's no exact shape. And then I will draw on the nose, bring it in. Same thing over here. So you have his eye socket here, you have the cheekbone coming down. We know that his mouth is kind of inset underneath the nose. And then we'll give him kind of a smile. Let's show some teeth on this one. So let's go ahead and draw. And remember, the teeth are going to pull back around his face. And don't worry, we're going to go ahead and erase this and clean it up in a little bit. I'm going to put his bottom teeth here. I'm just penciling them in, nothing too serious. And then I'm going to give him his bottom lip. And then his chin. Okay. So then what should we do from here? Well, let's figure out again our dilemma of what's his hairstyle. I'm going to give him kind of some neck muscles here. Now, if you don't know the muscles of the body and if you're not familiar with that anatomy, I suggest that you study anatomy quite intensely, to be honest, because it's a big part of the game. I do have a course. It's just a general basic course, but it is on superhero anatomy and simplified. But you should know the basics of what you're drawing. You should know where things fall. You should know why things are where they are and what they're used for and how they contract and move. You should have a general understanding of that. Okay. So now that we have this, I'm going to go ahead and give him a hairstyle. Now, he would be a completely cool bald. I mean, that's completely a cool look. But we're not going to take that easy route today. So I'm going to give him long hair. Okay. Not exactly like a female hair, but kind of. Give him long, sloppy hair. Messy hair. So in order to do that, I'm going to give him kind of a basic hairline. But we don't have to abide to this hairline or any other rules for that matter. So what I'm going to do is, last time with this character, I put his hairline on the side. This time I'm going to put it down kind of in the middle. And I'm just going to clump in some shapes. And we can come back and erase things. Now this is just the general outline of his hair. Just try and find the shape, right? And then we can give him some make him look at us. I like to make my characters look at me when I'm drawing. And say, what's my name? Okay, there you go. So now, this is the fun part for me. So I'll take his hair, and since I'm using this like really light paper, this works out really well. So I'll just shade his hair like this. I'll shade underneath his chin. I'll even shade around his eyes a little bit more. Underneath his nose. I'm kind of identifying some shadows, right? If the light source were above him. Why am I doing this? Well, I'm going to show you a method that I like to use when I don't really post stuff like this too often, but it's something that I like to play with. Let's imagine that he's got this kind of hair clumped over and he's got shadow under the hair. Okay, so I'll take my finger, because I don't have one of those stubby things, and I'll just kind of go over this whole thing and blend it in. Now you're not worried about losing the art. All you're doing is blending in. How's it look? I don't know how well this is going to shine through in camera, but you're doing this because you're experimenting. That's why I'm doing it. I don't know why you're doing it, but you're doing this because I'm telling you to do it, or I'm showing you how. Okay, so from here, I will just go with this eraser, and I will find areas that I think should be lightened up. Like the nose, right? So you're in essence drawing with your eraser now. Give them some glare, and top of the ear, and then where else? Maybe top of this lip here. Oh, his teeth for sure. Bottom lip, little chin, and then you can go with this hair And imagine that. Now you can just draw with the hair, however you want it to be. You can always come back and do more of this later if you feel like you need more highlights, or if you go a little crazy and you've done too much, don't worry about it. You can come back and shade in your pencil and do the same finger rub, and the magic will happen all over again. So now we have this, and this is the time where you get to kind of come back and accentuate with your other pencil. So I'm just going to come back with this pencil again. I know it seems redundant, I get it, but trust me on this, it's fun and you learn a lot. And you know, experimenting is always something that I recommend when it comes to drawing. So now I'm just going to go ahead and find the points where I think would get the best results if I highlighted them. And this just comes from experience and observation. Now I'm going to give them some fluffy eyelashes here, or eyebrows. Same thing over here. This eye, so I'm going to give them eyelashes here. And then I'm going to just continue. One thing I want to show you too, which is I think has a really cool effect, is instead of just drawing lines, draw kind of hollow little circles like that. It makes the mind think a little bit more, and you recognize the shapes a little bit more. It's a little, aesthetically it's pleasing, and it just adds a little character to your work. Don't say I never taught you anything. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and follow these shapes in. If you really want to get wild with this, you can go in and work on your lines, your line weights too. Line weights are basically when you want to accentuate or make something pop out, you tend to focus more on the lines that outline that particular subject. So, and generally the rule of thumb is whatever's closer to the the camera should have the thickest lines, right? Should have the because it's closer to us, it should be objects closer to you should appear larger, and objects that are further away should appear smaller. So and also has a lot to do with light. So if the light is up here, anything that's close to that light is going to be very thin, and anything that's further away from that light is going to get thicker. Now as you can see, this is all just from imagination, just making it up for you guys. But this is kind of my MO, right? I love to make up different characters and just kind of explore and experiment with my sketches. It's a whole different level when you're talking and drawing at the same time. So yeah, that's probably one of the big reasons why I don't make as many YouTube videos as I can or should or want to, just because it's a lot of work to do like this. Now, as mentioned before, I might start just drawing and recording it and then time-lapsing the video, so these sketches are, they go a little faster. But there's a part of me that thinks that you get a little bit more, for those of you who are really patient and really want to learn, I feel like you're going to get a little bit more value from real-time stuff like this. So faces, in my opinion, are, they're vital to your success as an artist, because part of art, even though it's mostly subjective, is you're communicating with your audience, right? You're communicating and conveying emotion to whoever is looking at your art, and you're telling stories with your art. Now, if you're not using sequential art, which tells you your story in a series of different panels, you're still telling a story with one sketch. Keep that in mind, because it's really vital to me. It's really, really important. You don't want to half-ass your art, and you don't want to sacrifice it, and you don't want to be gimmicky either. I love so many artists out there, but let them be who they are. You can mimic artists. Like I obviously have a lot of influences, and kind of ingrained into my art. Like I have J. Scott Campbell, I have Jim Lee, I have Michael Turner, I have Todd McFarlane, I have Mark Silvestri. I have a lot of these amazing artists. Their influence is kind of part of my style, but at the same time, and there's a lot more than that, by the way. I want to have my own style, and I want to do my own thing, and the only way you can do that is just by taking what you learn from other artists and applying it, but at the same time trying new things on your own that those guys didn't teach you. And what I see a lot of lately, and when I say lately, I mean a couple of years now, is now I love, like, there are two similar artists, like, and I like them both, David Finch and Stephen Platt, right? And Stephen Platt was kind of the guy who started the whole detailed thing, where he would just cross hatch a lot, and and David Finch kind of made it a little bit more popular. And I love his art and everything, but what I see is a lot of artists kind of mimicking that and not breaking off on their own, and what you're getting is you're just getting a bunch of like emulators, and when I see that, I'm like, it looks cool, great shading, it kind of stands out, and I can tell you got some David Finch influence there, but can you make it look more alive? Can you make it the movement there? Can you add some fluidity to it? Can you give it a little bit of that extra, like, it factor, instead of making it look perfectly clean and shaded in? Here I go rambling again. If you knew me in person, you'd know that this is what I do often. Okay, so there we go. We're gonna stop with that. You could do the same thing with this. I'm just going to tell you real quick. I could take this guy here, take my finger, and just kind of smudge it. Or you can buy one of those little nubs or whatever they're called. I don't get technical with this stuff. And you can do the same thing, same concept. Come in here, and you can just take what you've drawn. I don't recommend you do this all the time. Like if you're working professionally, don't ever do this, probably, unless you're doing like a cover or if they specifically asked for it. But generally, this is just for you. But you see how fast you can just kind of make things look a little bit more interesting. and it kind of adds a little bit more dimension and definitely adds more character and intrigue to your art. So a combination of doing something like this and then adding some shades and all that good stuff, that goes a long way. So I'm gonna stop here because let's go ahead and take this a moment here and go through what we've drawn. Now it's really dark on this camera, man. Compared to what I'm looking at, this camera is like making everything look really, really dark. I wonder if I can make some sort of an adjustment on that. Let's go ahead and show you a couple things. So if I were to, so this is a sketchbook that it's an older sketchbook. But generally, I'll use this type of paper. Now, this is something I've only found out here in Thailand. It might be everywhere. But this one is a 10.5 by 15 inch. So it's not big enough for like a standard comic book page. But it's really smooth. And it's 100 grams, whatever. That's like the, I forget, there's a reason for that number. When it comes to terminology and stuff like that, don't count on me to know exactly how to define and articulate. I'll show you, but I won't tell you. Okay, so this is stuff that dates back to like 2018. I just found this sketchbook randomly, and I like to sketch in these because they really help me to just put ideas on paper and practice things that I normally wouldn't. Like this is some female headshots. Hope you guys can see it pretty well. And then over here we have, what I'll probably do is just break this video down into like segments, because we're approaching 2 hours and I doubt anyone's gonna have that kind of attention span. So let's see, or desire to sit here and watch me draw for 2 hours. So yeah, this is just doodles. This is something that I like to do personally in my own free time as exercises, and I feel these books all the time. And if I don't, I look through them and try and find out if they have any pages left to fill out, and just practice. Practice, practice, practice. It's always going to be like that. You're always going to be practicing. Yeah. So you got a little. That's 2019. This one's brand new from today. Whoops, looks a little warped there when I carry it like that. But yeah. And then, yeah, this is from, I think this sketchbook was from late 2018, early 2019. I just found it in my my bin here. But yeah, this is, it's fun. You could just be free with this stuff. This sketch I just did recently, I think last night actually. I posted on my Instagram. So just some silly faces that all came out of my mind. I had like Swamp Thing, Batman, Wolverine. I don't know why it's so distorted here. Probably because of the camera. But there's that. Captain America was supposed to be silly looking. I just made a weird shape and just went with it and made him look cartoony. Little Spider-Man from 2000. I want to say that this is from 2019. Just practicing. This was a Spider-Man and Rhino idea layout for a sketch. I think that was for like a commission. So it was just an idea. So that's where these books come in handy. You want to fill them up with ideas and come back to them later, and just take a gander through them and get inspiration. So whenever you have a dry spell or you have like a artist block, you just kind of just dig through your old stuff and get re-inspired by your own stuff. You can look at other people's art too. I do that sometimes, but yeah, you can just look at your own stuff. Yeah, this is 2019 because I drew this like right after I watched Alita at the movie theater, and I think that's probably it. Yeah, just some doodles in the back. Hulk, 2019. There you go. A little peek behind the scenes. Just me, just getting ham with going ham with the inks, just playing around and learning, teaching myself. There you have it. Thank you for joining me. If you made it this far, I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to like, comment on what you thought and what you'd like me to draw more of. Subscribe if you haven't already, which I know you have. And then I'll include links to some of my courses and stuff like that. I'm launching Comic Art Mastery, the website, very shortly. It may be up by the time you see this, maybe not, but it's in the works. I'll have a members area there too, and I'll even put out a opt-in page for my mailing list, because I send out a lot of stuff like discounts on my courses and student success stories and stuff like that on email. So if you want to be involved in that, go ahead. Just depends on what level of seriousness you are as a student. But yeah, so that's going to be it for right now. Send me your comments. I do want to get more involved with making videos for YouTube. Please understand it's really tough because I work a lot. I barely have time to do anything. And I would like to. And I teach myself everything I know, like in terms of like editing videos and all that stuff. So I have a lot to learn. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next one.